organized.
Yeah.
We gotta use
Yeah,
the clap.
donkeys.
The Bronx.
Donkeys don't.
Are you ready for this?
You gotta say donkeys.
We gotta have a
Wicked.
clap. Okay, we're ready to go now. Get the clapper. I don't have a clap.
No man.
Oh, God.
Adam, we can just start it whenever.
We're never gonna.
I'm
get
just gonna
through
cut
this,
out their
will we?
audio when I edit it.
From the personal archives of James Cameron, the initial table read of scene 288 of Titanic, starring Ryan Ball as Jack, Eric Leeson as Rose, Daniel Norman as sound effects artist number 1, and Corey Newland as the narrator. Cut to Ocean.
Sorry, you got this.
Jack and Rose drift under the
Come on, speak with confidence.
You lost here.
All right, here we go. We got this. Talk a little louder.
Jack and Rose drift under the blazing stars. The water is glassy with only the faintest undulating swell. Rose can actually see the stars reflecting on the black mirror of the sea. Jack squeezes the water out of her long coat, tucking it in tightly around her legs. He rubs her arms. His face is chalk within the darkness, low moaning in the darkness around them.
It's getting quiet.
Just a few more minutes. It'll take a while to get the boats organized.
Hey, hurry up, get them boats organized.
Rose is unmoving, just staring into space. She knows the truth. There won't be any boats. Behind Jack, she sees that Officer Wilde has stopped moving. He is slumped in his life jacket, looking almost asleep. He has died of exposure already.
I don't know about you, but I intend to write a strongly worded letter to the White Star Line about all of this.
She laughs weakly, but it sounds like a gasp of fear. Rose finds his eyes in the dim light.
I love you, Jack.
He takes her hand.
No, don't say your goodbyes, Rose. Don't you give up. Don't do it. That's your line.
I'm so cold.
You're going to get out of this. You're going to go on. You're going to make babies and watch them grow. And you're going to die an old lady warm in your bed. Not here. Not this night. Do you understand me?
I can't feel my body.
Rose, listen to me. Listen. Winning that ticket was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Jack is having trouble getting the breath to speak.
It brought me to you, and I'm thankful, Rose. I'm thankful.
His voice is trembling with the cold, which is working his way to his heart, but his eyes are unwavering.
I didn't know we were in space.
It was clearly an ocean rumble.
Okay, that's the ocean rumble. Where was I? Okay. You must do me this honor. Promise me you will survive, that you will never give up, no matter what happens, no matter how hopeless. Promise me now, and never let go of that promise.
I promise.
Never let go.
I promise. I promise, Jack, not to let you go, Jack.
Don't
I'll
you
never
let go. Don't you let go.
She grips his hand, and they lie with their heads together. It is quiet now, except for the lapping of water. End scene.
Wow. Thank you guys for listening to that. Yeah, we recently just discovered from the personal archives of
James
Cameron, who actually is a viewer of the show now. He sent us that, and that is the original
thanks.
screen reading.
How old were you guys when this came out?
Well,
When did that come out? 92?
let's see. Old enough to where if you went and got it at Blockbuster, they handed you 2 VHS tapes.
Oh, yeah.
So if you got home without one,
What's a
you
Blockbuster?
You just had to go back.
Titanic came out in 97, so I was
2.
0.
Yeah.
I was 2.
I would have been.
So somehow you read that before that. How did that happen?
That wasn't me. That was that was another Ryan Ball. My,
15.
grandpa.
I would have been 15. So yeah, freshman or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember going to the theater and actually watching it with I can't remember who, with some friends or somebody from youth group or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I just remember my favorite part was once the boat started breaking apart and everything. And I thought that was pretty cool.
It
You
kind
know.
of was dragging on. up
Yeah.
until that-
Everybody dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the
For some reason, I thought there'd be a happy ending in it.
yeah. Well,
There was.
history never changed, so you know.
Eric's
was
like,
a
I can't
happy
wait to see
ending.
the plot twist in this one.
I watch it again and again.
Yeah.
That was a big movie, though.
It
I mean,
was.
that
Yeah.
really changed.
One of the biggest of all time.
Yeah, I mean, they brought it back to theaters like a second time, and I think that's why a lot of people said,
Yeah.
"Well, it made the most money because it was like it came back to theaters for like 6 months again or something."
Yeah, they like, what is it when they like upscale it or whatever? They upscaled it and then put it in
Yeah.
theaters.
To HD.
Yeah.
Well, here's the moral dilemma of that movie because there's some issues with that, right? 'Cause-
There's the paint me like one of your French women girls.
yeah.
That scene.
Then
I don't know how you
there's-
can paint STDs. So
There's the frolicking in
That's all
the vehicle.
yeah,
There it is.
Actually, here we go. I'm gonna get absolutely flamed for this.
You've never seen Titanic.
I've never seen the Titanic.
Are you serious? We just reenacted the scene. You've never seen the movie?
What do you mean we reenacted it? That
We
was
didn't
from-
reenact anything. That
that
was
was
the
from
original
that-
table
it's-
read.
Oh, sorry.
that kind of was like. Now I could be wrong on this, but
I've seen pretty much. I've probably seen every scene at some point for most of the movie, but I just haven't seen the whole movie all the way
Was-
through.
was it one of the first PG-13 movies to have nudity in it? Because I feel like as a kid, PG-13 you couldn't have nudity in it at all.
I mean, there was
One
Toy
of, it's
Story.
one of the few. There are some other ones I've seen that
right.
I think was it Doc Holliday or not?
Yeah, but
Question, though.
as a kid, I thought if it had nudity at all, it had to be R.
I may be confused because it's been a long time since I've teen Titanic. I couldn't speak. Sorry,
Teen
seen
Titans.
Titanic.
Go.
Was that for some reason all I'm remembering from that scene though is like you know what's going on, but you don't actually see anything in the car scene. It's like you just see like I
Well-
remember seeing like a hand on the window.
Question:
Yeah.
Where was the car?
It
It's
was
inside
on
the
a
boat.
It's
like
Oh.
being
It's
It's
brought
like
over
in
from England.
storage. They like go down
Yeah.
in storage and it's there.
We could reenact that scene real quick.
No, no.
Anybody have a Mini Cooper?
Yeah.
That we
Well-
can fit in this
Or an
room.
Aston Martin, whatever car it was, I can't remember.
Kind of my thought was to share too about like, you know, talking a little further with this. Is there any romantic movies that you actually get a little sappy with and you watch? That touch your
I know
heartstrings?
I know this is like so basic, but I actually really like The Notebook.
I've never seen it.
The-
I haven't
the
seen a
Notebook.
lot of romantic movies.
That is a good movie.
Now it's not something that I would have like ever picked on my own, but I remember like when I was watching it, I was like, it's actually pretty good. Like it's an interesting concept, I thought, but
Yeah,
I enjoyed watching it.
I will say that I've seen every Nicholas Sparks movie. I think we own every one of them because Leah is a huge Nicholas Sparks fan. I mean, she's even been outside of his house, like when they went to North Carolina and stuff.
We
Oh,
actually
really?
did that
And
too.
she's read a lot of his stuff. But as a movie,
What are some of the other movies?
oh
that-
my gosh,
Uh,
The Notebook,
Safe Haven.
Message in a Bottle, which I think is
Yeah.
probably his best one.
Message
If I
in a
had to
Bottle
pick,
was really good.
yeah, Safe Haven. Oh
See,
my
I-
gosh,
I-
The Notebook's his biggest one.
There's one that Miley Cyrus was
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
Shoot, what's that one?
I'm horrible about, but like I said, we have most of them. What's the big one with A Walk to Remember?
A Walk
now
to
that's probably the
Remember.
Mandy Moore. That's probably
Yeah.
his bigger one too.
Yeah.
But I will say, as overall, his movies are really the quality of the movies done really well. I'm just not a fan of that type of movie.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
I'm
understandable.
not. But they're when I say they're horrible, I don't mean they're horrible. As in, they're really well done. It's not like they're really cheap made or what.
I really
It's just not
liked
my-
I loved actually the newest Little Women movie. Did you ever see
I didn't
that?
see that.
I didn't
Oh
see it.
man, it was so good.
We watched.
I watched
the
it.
old
It
one.
was pretty good.
on
What's the
Christmas.
Hugh Jackman movie with Meg? Is it Meg Ryan?
X-Men.
He's somebody from the past or something. I think.
Oh yeah.
I actually like that.
You're
movie.
talking about
Oh come on.
with the mailbox where he leaves the
Like
notes
the
in
letters in the mailbox
He
or
leaves the letters.
whatever.
In
No,
that's
he
not
comes.
Hugh Jackman.
He's like an old soldier, or something like
Yeah.
coming into the future, or
Yeah.
into the present time.
I
have
can't
no idea
remember
what
the
that
name
is.
of it.
Wait,
but
Captain America?
It's Hugh Jackman.
There is one that I really like. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It has Jim Carrey in it.
Yeah, is that good?
Oh my gosh.
You'd consider
it's-
that a romantic movie?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's you've seen
No,
it,
I
right?
haven't seen it.
It's really good. It's kind of sci-fi too. I mean, it's like grounded sci-fi. But man, that's a good movie. Has Mark Ruffalo in it too. Elijah Wood. Some guy named Ryan Whitney. He killed it. Sure he did.
I'm trying to think of other ones.
I mean, I don't think there's like a
I'm thinking of comedy ones too, like
Seren-
50 First Dates.
Serendipity.
Oh, I like 50 First Dates. That's a good one.
Serendipity was a big movie back in the day.
I like that.
Now, like, yeah, romantic comedies, like, I can deal with.
Yeah.
But just, I'm trying to
Just
think
a
of,
straight out
is there a
romantic
straight out
movie.
romantic movie that, I
Yeah.
mean,
Not very many on my list.
it would have to be like,
And thankfully, my wife doesn't really care.
yeah, I
Shelley
mean,
doesn't really
it would
care
have to
for
be
those
like,
either.
Has anyone seen Her with Joaquin Phoenix?
that was on my list to watch
That
a long
is
time ago.
an interesting one.
Really?
It is for sure like a romance movie, but it's in the future and he falls in love with his like version of Siri. But at that
Yeah.
point, it's so advanced that she like sounds exactly like a human. The voice is played by Scarlett Johansson, and dude, it's heartbreaking
Or,
because he like falls in love with it and like obviously it
Les
doesn't turn out
Mis?
super well. But that's a great movie.
does he actually go seek out the person that does the voice?
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
I think he just falls in love with her because I think in the movie each voice is like tailored to like what he would be interested in, I guess, or something like that. But
Kate and Leopold.
That's it.
Kate and Leopold.
Kate and Leopold.
Interesting.
That was one of those movies that I thought was a good romantic movie.
yeah.
Oh, one.
I think to your point, Dan, for me to get engaged with a romantic movie, it has to have other elements in it, like comedy or
right.
like that. It's a time element where
See,
it's a romantic
I think that's why I
story.
like all the sci-fi ones.
Yeah,
I think that's cool.
yeah. I like it to be tied. I guess there's movies too. Like, is there other movies that even deal with the time travel type things that bring out romantic?
Yeah,
type
because, I mean,
things
I
besides that one?
I think the whole idea of love and romance, I mean, everybody is okay with that because everyone wants to be a part of that. But just, I do have to see. I enjoy it weaved into something, whether, like I said, whether it's comedy or action. Like, for instance, The Count of Monte Cristo. That is one of my favorite movies of
That's
all
a good
time.
romantic. I would count
But
that.
he does things that are wrong, but his whole purpose, his whole thing that drove him to do what he did was because he lost his love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, I would say, just thinking of that, that's probably my favorite romantic movie of all time,
Yeah.
which is fantastic.
Brian, I
La
didn't.
La
thi-
Land's good too.
That's a good one. I didn't think about this before, but I was looking through my list that I have of like some of my favorite movies, and a movie that popped up that I feel like you could consider a romance anime movie. Your Name. It's a
Never seen it.
really
That's
good
good.
movie.
It's
It's
next
super
level
Your
good.
Name, huh?
Yeah.
It's
Shout out to Sticky. He actually mailed it to me the other day.
yeah. It's
My friend Sticky.
it's crazy good. It's kind of hard. It looks like this.
Yeah, it's
It's
like
called Your Name,
Huh.
but
it's like easily it's like the easiest 5 out of 5 star movie I think I've ever given.
Wow.
yeah. I watched it, and I actually had my parents watch it with me afterwards.
Really?
And it was they thought it was really good too.
Huh.
No, the first
So-
time I saw that, I was like a wreck. But it's really good. So if maybe at some point we can watch, I have it. I think it's appropriate. Yeah, it's PG.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of weird because it's pretty like Japanese anime.
Yeah.
So some people might not like it, but it's
If-
fire.
And it definitely is like a cool throw you for a loop movie without
Yeah,
giving anything away.
it throws you for a loop, for sure.
Is it all right to move into like inspirational movies? Is that appropriate? I'm thinking romance kind of that's
Kinda
pulls your heartstrings. But I was thinking about inspirational movies.
Inspirational?
What movies have inspired you? Like, kind of like pushed you in a maybe your heartstrings in a positive way.
I mean, what were you saying?
I was gonna say, like, when you said inspirational for me, I guess it's one that was like a little rough around the edges. But back in the day, the movie Coach Carter,
Oh yeah.
I like the idea of him like going in, and I felt like it was raw in like a good way, because like the place where their basketball team was like super ghetto. They, but he was trying to like turn them into men.
Yeah.
And like that to me was like he held them accountable, and then like to see the change in the different people. I thought that was such. A
I
good
watched
movie.
Good Will Hunting for the first time yesterday.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Ever, which I can't believe I hadn't seen it before. And oh my gosh, it was so good.
Yeah.
Literally,
definitely
like Robin Williams acting in that is like so good that it doesn't even feel like acting.
You know that whole scene like where he's talking about his wife and
Yeah.
that was all ad lib, like,
Yeah,
and that was a legit like
the
like laughter
like
from
funny
Matt
scene-
Damon.
Yeah, there's a scene in it. Have you seen it, Eric?
Yeah.
The scene where it's one of the first sessions between him and Will, Matt Damon's character, and it's so Matt Damon's going through all these different therapists trying to get him to open up, but he's so like defensive of his past that he like just blows up. And so there's a point in the movie where like for 3 therapy sessions, Matt Damon just sits in Robin Williams' office for like an hour, just not saying anything. And Robin Williams is just like, he has to talk first or else it's not going to go anywhere. If I keep talking, then so eventually he starts talking and Robin Williams cuts in, ad-libs this scene apparently. And he's
It's so like inspirational, like talking
he's
about
like-
his wife and her, because she passed or
he's
something.
like, my wife used to fart in her sleep. And Matt Damon starts laughing, and in the scene you could see the like camera shaking too because the cameraman was laughing so hard. It's so good. But yeah, I'd say that one. I mean, it's just inspirational because it's like I kind of relate to kind of being not to that extent locked off from like sharing emotions and stuff, and so to see someone
Have you
open up
seen
like
Dead
that.
Poets Society?
I haven't.
That's
See,
a good
that's
one.
another one I
There-
need to watch.
So like, I was going to mention Dead Poet. Since we're talking about Robin Williams, Robin Williams probably had to be like the king of improv.
Yeah.
Oh
like
yeah.
like the whole scene, the beginning of Aladdin, when he's the guys at the table saying all the things that he asked for sale. They said, I read a thing about that. They basically just put a whole bunch of junk on the table and let him go at it, and that whole scene is improv. That whole beginning scene.
I mean, his
but-
comedy style was literally just like boom, 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 boom,
Oh,
boom,
yeah,
just
yeah,
nonstop, super. So like he was made for that.
I know a lot of people, like especially in education, that was always the one movie. There was always, Mr. Holland's Opus.
I was about to say,
and,
I was
and
gonna
Dead
ask you.
Poet Society is always one of the movies you'd have a professor say, "Now this semester you need to watch Dead Poet Society." And
Yeah.
so I've seen that movie so many times, but as a teacher, it's just so cool because you see he goes in and he doesn't try to disrupt or break the rule. He's trying to make the kids better by what he sees. And there's this scene, and I love it. And I loved to write as a kid and growing up, but there's the scene where he's trying to get this kid to write. And the kid's trying to do things the standard way. And he finally brings him up in front of the class. He just covers his eyes and he's like, "Tell me what you see." And he goes to he just starts talking about what he sees. And he talks about how he sees a sweaty, toothless man. And then he just like speaks this like really nice poem. And the class is just like blown away by it. And so he's just trying to show him that you have it in you. You just have to stop trying to do things the same way. And at the end, it's just very encouraging the way they, lift him up and stuff. So that's definitely a great, inspiring movie. One movie I was going to mention that it's probably cliche to say it, but it's one of my favorite is Hoosiers.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
That's
a good movie, too.
you can't watch that movie and not
Be inspired.
feel good and be inspired.
What I love about too that he faces conflicts in that movie that shows, and it goes with Coach Carter too. There's a lot of the backlash that he faces,
Yeah.
and just that he works through those things, and he works through the issues of the players, and bringing a team together. I love all the is inspirational. Just the fact that the assistant coach deals with alcoholism,
Yeah.
and his son is embarrassed by his dad.
Yeah.
Those type of things made that story such a special story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know-
I feel like a lot of sports movies. Like I'm just thinking like
Remember
Remember the
the
Titans.
Titans.
Yeah, like that. You can't watch that. Cinderella Man with
that
Russell
was-
Crowe.
oh, that's
That's
Have
just
you,
one of
have
my
you seen a
favorite
movie
movies.
called Phenomenon? Or no, sorry, maybe it's called Powder.
John Travolta, right?
Uh,
Or no, it's guy gets struck by lightning.
No, well, that one's kind of inspirational too.
Whoa.
I was wrong. It's called Powder, I think. Have
Powder.
you seen
I've never
it?
seen that.
Powder is about a guy that gets struck by lightning.
Powder should be a guy that
I
can't be
think.
out in the sun or something.
Yeah, shy young man known as Powder struggles to fit in.
Yeah,
Because
that's an inspiration. Mask. Have you guys ever seen Mask?
Yeah.
Awesome, inspirational.
Not the Jim Carrey one. The
I was
other
Let's
one.
share.
I was
I was
also
about to
going to
say-
say one of the ones that I thought of too, Pursuit of Happiness. with
That's
Will
a good
Smith.
movie. Yeah.
Like, I remember watching that and like his like transformation of like his attitude of like I cannot give up. Like
Yeah.
we cannot survive if I
Well-
and just going out like that. And like his kid doesn't even really know, like he knows, but he doesn't understand.
Speaking
the
of Will
gravity.
Smith, did you get the him and Matt Damon, the Bagger Vance,
Oh yeah,
Legend of Bagger
yeah,
Vance,
I haven't
The,
seen
I
that.
guess the golf
the
movie.
golf one?
Oh, really?
Well, in a lot of these movies we're mentioning, what's unique about them, and I think the thread that goes through all of them is most of them are connected to real events.
Yeah.
And I think that's what truly makes things inspirational is that it's somebody who's gone through something and you kind of have a little spark of hope thinking, oh, well, maybe there's a chance for me. Maybe there's a shot for me. And I think that's what kind of makes things,
Yeah.
inspirational. As much as I love sci-fi and things like that, I mean, I don't think they inspire people as much as real true stories do.
Schindler's List too.
Oh man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man.
First time I watched that, I was.
I haven't
just
seen
like,
that for such a long time. That
so
would be a
good.
good one to watch.
That's one of those movies that I
So
feel like for a lot of
good.
kids, and me too, because I was forced to watch it in middle school, and a lot of those movies that I'm kind of forced to watch and like take notes on and to answer questions on, those are ruined for me. But I watched that again in college, and I was like, man, it's so good.
Now, what was the one called about the ship about slaves and slavery?
Amistad.
Amistad.
That is a fantastic movie too. It kind of puts things in perspective. You're like, wow, like people go through that, and but people willing to try to make a change.
Yeah.
That was a Steven Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah, that's a fantastic movie.
Secret
Well,
Life
both
of
of
Walter
those
Mitty
were-
too.
they
For
were-
me, have you
yeah.
guys seen that?
Oh yeah, Walter.
That's a
Mitty.
movie that inspired me to randomly go on a trip to Iceland.
Yeah.
And man, that is especially like that just kind of nails you feel like you're just a typical person.
Yeah.
And then you watch this guy go on this huge
Mhm.
adventure. I think that's awesome. So freaking good. So stinking good. So good.
I think you're right, Dan. I think that a lot of times these movies inspire us because they speak to true things that we
Mhm.
know and the struggles that we deal with. And,
Yeah.
I was thinking about going back to the romantic side. Not really the romantic side. I guess it's more this inspirational storytelling that Steel Magnolias
Oh yeah.
was a really good movie.
Yeah.
Dealing with the different dynamics of people's problems and.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be considered more of a girl movie, but it was actually just a really good story if you
Yeah.
ever watched it.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the movie called? Driving Miss Daisy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
That's
a
a good
great
movie.
movie. I'm adding movies to my list that I think Leah would like watching with me. So, Goodwill Hunting, I put that on
I
there.
love that movie.
Because there's a lot of we don't like a lot of the same movies, but movies like that, Cinderella Man and things like that,
And
she
then-
really likes.
And then you get brownie points because you're like, I picked this movie so we can
Yeah.
watch it together.
I'm like,
but
well,
actually,
I really like it too. So
yeah. But man, so
Is there any TV shows that you felt like over the years were just TV shows that kind of inspired you too? I mean, I'm thinking about a show for
man.
me growing up was Highway to Heaven.
Oh
Michael
yeah,
Landon.
I remember that.
It was this,
Michael Landon.
yeah, it was basically a story of an angel that was sent here on Earth to
Yeah.
help people and help people fix things and problems. I know I was never really much into the other angel show, or what was it?
Touched by an Angel.
Touched by an
Yeah.
Angel. I never really. I don't know why. I just never really got into that
Yeah.
too much. But have there been other TV shows that growing up that you really
man.
felt you connected with? And
I mean, I
kinda-
can think of a lot of good TV shows, but I feel like I don't know. I
inspirational.
can't think of like ones that I was like really inspired by it.
Well, there were some powerful episodes. You ever watch a show called Quantum Leap?
Yeah.
I
Oh,
thought
yeah.
some
Yeah.
of those shows
That
were really
was-
Yeah.
inspiring because he'd go to different time periods and fix an issue or
Try to
fix a
help
try to
somebody
help
before
somebody.
their life
But
went
it was
bad.
inspiring,
Yeah,
because
he was. And what was cool about that? I used to watch it on. Was it on Sci-Fi?
It's on Sci-Fi.
Or-
Yeah. That's at least that's
Because
why I
he
watched
was
it.
he was always trying to get back home too.
Yeah.
That was the tie-in to the show was maybe the next time, but as he was still stuck in this, in the future or the past or wherever, he's like, well, I'm here. I might as well do some good.
Yeah.
And he was always trying to get back home, but at the same time, he was helping other people. That was a really good
And
show.
he always was in the person's body. So
Yeah.
he could have been
Yeah.
old man, young man,
Woman.
a woman.
I think
And he had to try to pick up who that person was and act like that person without throwing
Did you ever watch
suspicion.
that Quantum Leap?
I haven't.
So it's definitely a '90s show,
I'm looking it
but
up right
you
now.
should
might check
definitely.
it out 'cause
Bakula.
I think it's something you would probably
Really?
like.
Yeah,
It's
some of the
very
episodes
cool.
are really cool too.
And probably ahead of their time in terms of like, he had the one guy who kind of helped guide him and everything. And
That's where Hank
very-
Pym got his technology
pretty
from
much,
to go
pretty
back
much.
and.
Huh. No,
Yeah.
I hadn't even really
The
heard of that
actor was a
until
pretty
now.
popular guy too.
I was weirdly inspired by Breaking Bad. I
Yeah.
know it's, I mean, mainly just from a like a filmmaking perspective.
Well, I don't know about that. I think it had elements of, the fact that you have experienced situations where you put yourself in a bad situation, how to get out of it.
Yeah, true.
And a
Oh,
lot
yeah,
of the
just-
choices weren't good choices,
Mhm.
but you could see yourself going down that road.
It's weird because it's such like a far out there concept, but also it's super relatable in weird ways. Like
Well,
it's like
yeah.
taken to the next level, like something that you've experienced, just like being in a weird situation.
Yeah.
You're trying to do the best thing for something, and it gets blown out of
Well, and when it's
proportion.
when it starts with like, I think you can also speak to the just fact that it like is and I think this happened not to this scale, but I think it happens to people a lot. Like people start something with
Good
they
intentions.
think it's good
Yeah.
intentions, even if they know the decision they're making. Like
or better yet, to even make the excuses for good intentions.
yeah,
True.
exactly.
Yeah.
So like it's not a good decision, but you try and justify your
Mhm.
actions, and then like they just consistently just get
Yeah.
more out of place.
Well,
Yeah, because that's what the interesting thing is. Because at the end of it, he kind of admits it, right? He's like, "I did this for myself."
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's
You know.
that one of the very last scenes. When
Oh
he's
my gosh.
talking to her at the end, and she says, "Don't tell me you did this for us, for our family." And he says, "No, I mean,
At the end of the day, he did it for him.
What was cool about that was if I remember correctly, he doesn't even try to justify. Well, at the beginning it was for me, but no, he said no,
Yeah.
it just was
Yeah.
for me, and that's a great show.
I think that show has the best ending to any TV show too.
Yeah,
I love the way
I
that
mean,
ends.
it's better than Lost.
Oh yeah. Lost was like
That is a hot
here,
topic.
and Lost was like
Kind of
Like
like
the plane
kind
crash.
of like the
Yeah.
beginning.
I think hands down, like Lost, season 1 of Lost, I don't think there's any TV show that you could compare to saying, well, this season 1 was better than Lost. I mean, just in my opinion.
I've never seen Lost. Actually.
I think Lost is one of
It's
the
good.
best TV shows ever made.
I think it's
So yeah,
I
I've
thought
never
it
really
was
got
so
into
good.
it. I watched a little bit of it, but I
the
wasn't
reason
all
just
into
knew
it.
what.
the reason why was the suspense element.
Yeah.
I remember when you go Blockbuster again. Remember when you go to Blockbuster and you rent like a season
what's
of
that?
something, and they give you like a disc and it had like episodes 1 through 4 episodes. And I remember going to Blockbuster and the lady at the counter, never watched Lost before. The lady at the counter says, "Do not get more episodes than you can watch tonight." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Don't get any more episodes than you can watch tonight." I said, "Oh, okay." Watched the first 4 episodes the same night. I couldn't stop watching.
Really?
It. Like I had to keep watching it.
Wait,
Like,
why'd she say that?
Because she was like, if you get 8 or 10 episodes, you're gonna stay up all night and watch them all.
I gotcha.
So because when I finished 4 episodes, I was like,
Thank goodness that lady
"Oh,
said
man,
that.
it's like 3 a.m. and I gotta go to work. But
Yeah.
No.
And then Breaking Bad, I thought was like here and just
yeah, not a single
No, that's
bad
where
episode.
that's again, it goes back to the issues of TV that I have.
yeah.
And that's why Quantum Leap is a show I like, because it was almost each episode was start, finish, end, and that's what I like.
Yeah.
Like Highway to Heaven, there's a little bit of progression in the story, but it's you have your start and you have your end.
They stand alone.
I don't like TV shows that just put a lot of filler, and it's like even the Legend of Korra. I was watching that with Xavier, and there were so many episodes in that I was just like, why are we watching this?
Yeah.
It's just wasting my time.
It was
It's
like
not
the first
progression
one.
of the story.
So wait,
Anime's
filler.
bad about that,
So
though.
wait,
Cartoons like
you
that are
don't
bad
like
about
shows
that.
that have like the entire season has its own arc.
No,
Like-
no,
like
no. I
Breaking
do.
Bad?
Breaking Bad is totally different. What I hate is an episode, and Breaking Bad had a few of it, not very much at all. I don't like because they're made for TV, right?
Mhm.
They slayed out so many episodes, and this is what I love
Yeah.
about what we see happening with Disney Plus.
Yeah, it's what we talked about.
Is that it's more
WandaVision.
concise episodes that you don't feel like they're filler episodes. That there's
Okay.
a progression of the story. or there's a start and an end to each
Yeah.
episode.
Basically, I think what you're saying, which I agree to, you need every episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
There are
Like,
some
like
shows
each
you don't
episode
need.
matters.
Yeah. So like in like Breaking Bad, for instance, I don't know if there's maybe a couple.
There's a couple,
There's a
but
couple
not
you
very
maybe
many.
could take out, but not a lot.
but they're
WandaVision,
still so good.
you can't take out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Falcon and Winter Soldier, you can't
Well,
probably take out any episodes.
And
It's
I
not
think
too long. It's not too short.
I think a
It's
perfect
just right.
example of like what you're talking about is how I feel like shows don't do it anymore, but like in the early 2000s, how TV shows always, like every show had that one random musical episode.
Oh yeah.
Like they threw in a musical episode that wasn't relevant to
Usually
anything.
there's a holiday episode.
Dude, I
Yeah.
love
Yeah,
those.
or
The
a
Glee
holiday-
episode.
Yeah,
The-
and it just like didn't.
Well, the
matter.
other one I like was Scrubs
Oh yeah.
because that was
Well,
funny, but that was a
But
comedy.
See,
but
to me, like the
Scrubs did one like
Scrubs or
that.
like
That's
The
a
Office, that's
comedy.
a lot different
Yeah.
because their objective is not to tell a
Right.
story. I guess I'm thinking more plot driven
You're
stories.
thinking
Yeah.
overarching.
Now
story.
Because,
there's a show that I like to watch, and I got it, and I would just binge it. Well, they have this. They're building up to this big old battle and all this stuff. Well, then it would just do these flashbacks, and I would get on. I'd Google it, and I'd find it would layout of all the episodes, and there would be so many listed that are called filler. They
Yeah.
have nothing to do, and
See,
I'm
I
like,
hate that.
okay, well, I'm just gonna skip all
Yeah,
those.
no, there's
Now,
full
like,
websites on
there's
how
things-
to skip filler.
Yeah, there's things like the way they do it. It's all like it's character development, like it's flashbacks to help.
right.
But at the same time, like I don't know that I want to waste my time on that. I
Exactly.
need to finish. I need to
Yeah.
see. You left me hanging. You know, I need to see what happens next.
I like tighter stories. You know,
Mhm.
that's with the Breaking Bad. They knew exactly. Didn't
Yeah.
they know exactly where they were taking it at the very end?
I
I mean, maybe
think
not
so.
exactly,
I'd
but
say so.
they
I'd say
they
had
had a
the
good
full
idea
arc,
where
yeah.
they're. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
See
yeah.
that I like that.
See, what I hate though, which I thought you were saying at first that you only like, I hate an Arrow. I think is a good example of this. That Arrow show. I hate it when shows have the villain per episode thing.
Yeah.
And like and Supernatural kind of did it too in some seasons.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like every
And Doctor Who, where like there's kind of this arc, but every episode is like huge villains going to destroy the world. They handle that in that episode and never talk about it again. I hate that so much.
I think
I
another.
can understand that point, but I do feel like that the reason why I'm saying that is if you're gonna drag it out and there's not gonna be a point to it,
Yeah.
I'd rather it just be starting in.
Mhm.
I
Like
th- I think
Walking
a good
Dead is
ex-
probably a good example of
Yeah.
something that you don't like.
Exactly. It was really good,
Oh, it was
Yeah.
so good.
but I mean, it's like
they didn't.
Good
They either
grief.
didn't
Yeah.
know where it was going, or they knew where it was going and wanted to milk it.
and would have
And now
been
it's
would have been
just-
better served if they had a clear start and finish, and then start a new track
Mhm.
in a different part of the world
yeah.
or a different part of the.
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree. You know what
I like NCIS, and
Mhm.
it's very much like you were saying in yours. Like every episode, there's always the day-to-day stuff going on. But what'll happen is every season, it'll either start off or you'll start catching up at the middle to the end. This big overarching thing, and then every episode there might be dealing with the day-to-day stuff, and so at beginning and ends, case opens, case close. But then sometimes there's a little bit of information that ties into the bigger arc that it's building up to the end. It's very good structurally done that way. Yeah.
I was going to mention another episode I thought of. I immediately thought of this episode, but I wanted to look it up because I couldn't remember what it was called. We've talked about Avatar: The Last Airbender a lot.
Yeah.
You and I have. We both love that show.
Definitely.
But like, I was thinking of some meaningless episodes in the show, and one that popped into mind. There's an episode called The Swamp, and they get drawn into like this mystical swamp, and then they get like attacked by plant benders who are basically water benders that learned how to like bend the water in the plant so they can make the
Yeah.
plants move. Well, after that episode's done, they leave the swamp. It's like obviously they're all training, but like Katara and like Aang, neither of them even attempt to like learn how to do it. So it could actually benefit them if they learned how to do it. And then the episode just like nothing happens. Like it's just like they
Nothing really
leave.
is done there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like an episode where you're like, it doesn't affect
Filler.
the story.
Yeah, anime's really bad in that. Like I tried watching Dragon Ball, the original, and oh my gosh, it gets so bad.
Yeah.
Like there's like thousands of episodes in that show, and I looked on a website and there's like maybe like 200 that are actually like with the story that you could literally skip
I
everything
watched that
else.
every day coming home. And the other thing that was bad too is like you're getting to the big climactic battle scene, and the show is literally only 15 minutes long
Yeah,
between
I
all
know.
the commercials. Well, 10 minutes of that is just them
Screaming.
silently staring at each off, and then like the one I know of is like when they're battling Frieza,
Yeah.
and so it's all these flashes of the planet destroying for like 10 minutes, and they're just standing off, and then like you see like 2 minutes of fighting before the show's over.
See, I couldn't imagine
It's
watching.
like they're building it up too slow.
I
too
couldn't
much.
imagine watching that show as it came out. That'd be so frustrating.
I did, though. I did it.
You wait all
I
week
did
for
it.
an episode,
That's
and it's
why-
just them, they're screaming at each other, and like they're getting ready to punch each other, and then the episode ends, and you're like, oh my gosh.
That's why I do like. Yeah, I do like the fact that we have Netflix and other places now that we can watch shows. Because growing up, it was so frustrating having to wait each week to watch an episode.
Well, yeah, and if you like were at church on Wednesday night and your parents were talking or had a board meeting,
Oh,
and
yeah,
you didn't
I'm
set
sure
the
that was-
VCR, I mean, you're just messed
Yep.
over until a couple years later it
Well, there
came
was-
out, and there was
yeah.
no like even YouTube where you could maybe.
Well,
look at
like
it.
for growing up as a kid, I mean, you relate to this some, but
Yeah.
for me too, that growing up, you didn't have an idea that you would ever have a chance to watch that episode ever again.
No.
You miss it. You miss it.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
Mhm.
you
And
didn't know if you were ever going to be able to go back to Knight Rider. That was
Yeah.
one of the things I got in trouble. I'd lose my Knight Rider episode. Not devastate me because that was my favorite show.
Yeah,
And so I was like, oh no, I can't watch Knight Rider. And then
Well,
it's
then-
lost forever.
and there was really like one TV in the house, so
Yeah.
if mom and dad were watching
Yep.
something on a Friday night,
Thinking family.
you were just stunk.
Well, I get to the
Stink
point
family.
now where like I think of that and I'm like, thinking, okay, I'll never see that show again or that movie, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I can look for it. I can bet you I can find it, but now I can't remember it.
Yeah.
I can't remember what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
missed
yeah,
or
yeah.
what it's called,
Yeah.
and so like until it hits me and I try to write it down and look it later, but
Well, that's a good
I forget
question
that I can look it
to-
up now.
To talk about, is there shows that you'd like to get back into that you kind of just, fell off the radar for some reason? Is there any shows that you started
Oh,
watching
man.
that you just didn't
Yeah,
finish
yeah, there was
and
one
would
I
like
was
to
just
get back to it? Because, I mean,
thinking about the other day, and I just stopped watching it because I wasn't. What's that?
Shelly's making fun of me some because I've been starting watching MeTV, like, because, some of these TV shows I used to watch as a kid.
I watched
Like
those
Columbo.
sometimes.
Columbo was a great investigative TV show I like to watch every
Yeah.
once in a while.
My in-laws love. They have like the whole box set. That's the one show they really like.
See, I loved Mission Impossible.
That was a
That
good TV
TV
show. The A-Team.
Yeah.
I wish I could watch some of those old shows and have the same feeling that you did when you watched them as a kid,
Yeah,
though.
you
You know,
can't.
like
Yeah.
I watched
Because back in the day, they were cool, and now you're like,
This-
no, that's not how you do a special effect.
this afternoon. This afternoon, I was just sitting on the couch flipping through, and Gilligan's Island was on, and I was
Oh.
like, "Oh, I want to watch an episode of this," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, maybe the kids would like it." But
Yeah.
real quick, going back to what you were talking about, because I know we talked about it with the WandaVision, but the episode, but Leah, she's been watching over the past several years of This Is Us.
Oh, my
And
parents watch
that's kind of that show's getting a lot of slack for that right now because the first 3 seasons or so they really sucked people in. Then season 4, that was like super short, but now they're doing like 6 episodes and then like half a year break and then 6 more
Oh.
episodes. So
That's the worst.
and they've been saying and they've been telling the fans for years, it's going 6 seasons. We know exactly where it's going to happen, where it's going to end, and I can tell from her, like when I talk to her, like say, "Hey, how was that episode?" She's just like, "It's just," and they did the whole mask thing, and everything revolved around COVID. And I know for me, I just think that's writers were like, "Hey, here's a good way we can make it
Yeah.
seem real," but people don't want to see that. But
Well,
anyways, I know a lot of people.
It's
don't.
interesting. Like I haven't. Like NCIS, I still watch it, and it's still on today. I haven't saw recent episodes, but I've seen like snippets where they're wearing masks.
Yeah.
I haven't got to the point to where see how it is, but it is interesting to see that played in because now I'm wondering, 15 years from now, you go back and watch that,
Yeah.
it's like thinking back when it was pandemic, and it's like, why do they wear masks? Well, I don't know. I'm just curious about all that.
I tried watching an episode of Chicago Med
Yeah,
one
and
night,
they
and
were
I
nice.
got up and walked away. I was like, I'm tired of seeing that stuff.
Yeah.
You watch TV to get away from
yeah.
Yeah, that's
and
very
stuff.
true.
But anyways, yeah. So I know that show's kind of. I mean, that's pretty. I would say that's probably the most popular show on like network TV right now.
Yeah.
This
Is
Is
there,
Us.
is there any other shows
I
that
know
are
it's
like really
Taken.
popular right now on main network?
I don't know, but I've been
The Chicago's
really
Wednesday
I've been
nights
really
shows
big
been
into
getting
true
high.
crime podcasts recently.
I literally. Okay, we're gonna have a tangent here for a second. So, Ryan did that strategically. I'm pretty open about like if someone recommends something to me, I'm like yeah, I'll give that a try. So Ryan and I were together, and he
It was
goes,
while we're playing Call of Duty, I think.
I think the first time we were
okay,
in person.
yeah, it was
The
we were painting
first
your
time-
house.
Yeah, we were painting my house. So Ryan's like, dude, I've been listening to these podcasts. They're called True Crime Podcasts. They're really good. You should try it out. And I was like, okay, like I'll give it a listen. I kid you not, within an hour, he told me that I should listen to True Crime Podcasts 5 times within an hour. And I have just like put up a stone wall that I'm just not going to do it now.
Yeah.
And because it was just so frustrating.
It makes him so
Because
mad.
it does. Because every time, like, if we are going to play PlayStation, we'll load it into a party, and he'll just be like, hey, I was listening to this true crime podcast today. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to listen
We're
to
like
it.
talking
now.
about
I
something completely
refuse."
different, and I'll be like, "Am I the only one in here that has been addicted to true crime podcasts recently?"
And I just told him, we just have this, like, stalemate now where I'm just like, I'm never listening to a true crime podcast because
listen,
of the way you treated it.
you
Ju-
need
just
to,
out of
No,
spite.
not going
Just
to.
out of
Dude,
Just
spite.
out of spite.
I think I
at
even
this
told
point.
Adam about it at the gym.
Maybe.
Because when I run now, I'm running to crime
But-
junkies.
But here's the thing.
It's good.
I was going to say, now, since you brought up a podcast, though, we were talking about inspirational earlier.
Yeah.
More
Well, more to
More Llama. The
But
number one
have you
inspiration
guys,
podcast.
have any of you guys listened to the Unashamed podcast with Phil Robertson?
I haven't.
It's so good.
See, I like those podcasts, but mainly when I listen to podcasts, it's because with my new job, I have to drive all over the freaking place. It's annoying. But I have to listen to something stimulating to keep me awake.
And they have like heavy voices, so it's kind of
Yeah.
like I can see that. But I was gonna say it's his oldest son Alan, Jace, and Phil have a podcast, and they it's on Phil's Facebook page is where they post it. But they tell all these like crazy stories from their whole life growing up because he wasn't a Christian when he was younger, and like just recently they found out he had a daughter from when like they were
man.
separated and
Yeah,
stuff.
there's a big controversy
It was
going on.
well,
yeah,
they tried to. People tried to play it off as a controversy because they were like, "Oh, this Christian guy had this affair and had
Yeah.
a daughter
Huh.
or whatever," but he didn't even know he had the daughter, and she like searched them out, and he immediately like they brought her into their family, like her and her husband. They even talk about it. They bring her and her husband on the podcast.
Wait, it was the husband's.
No, so Phil Robertson, like the patriarch of the
old guy?
the old guy.
Oh, okay.
He had
He
like
had
an
a past
affair
wife
at some not
Oh,
a
an
past
affair
life
while he was
or
married?
they
Or he was a
separated
Christian.
before he was a Christian, and he had a daughter,
Oh, okay.
but he never even knew he had the daughter.
Mm.
So it wasn't like
Spicy.
he left her or whatever, but the news kind of tried to portray that. But he immediately brought her in. Like she searched them out because she just wanted to. She found out. She like begged her mom, I guess, or something, and found out who her dad was. She never knew who her dad was, and he literally didn't deny it. Didn't like try and bury it. Nothing. He was like they brought her in like with everything. He was like he did a whole episode where he took her on her first duck hunt because he was like.
Huh.
And it's really actually pretty cool because a lot of people would try and like, you know, you're famous and try and hide
gotta
stuff
hide
or
this,
whatever.
yeah,
But he was
sweep
like,
it under the rug.
he was like, I didn't know I had a daughter. This is my daughter. Like,
Oh.
you know, but they talk. It's so cool because they like weave scripture completely through their thing. But he just has the most bizarre stories about Louisiana and stuff. That's like,
Down all the
like I was
line.
watching one the other day and he talked about how like 10 years ago he was fishing and was using like a drag hook to like pull up fishing nets from the bottom of the river,
Yeah.
and it broke off and he lost his hook or something. He was like, I was really mad because it was my favorite hook. And then he said like 10 years later in church, this guy showed up to church or something and he was like a scuba diver. And he was like, actually, I have something you might be able to do. And he took him out on the river, and it was like in the like a big like swampland in the middle of the river. And he was like, I lost a hook 10 years ago. And the guy was like, this is a river. Like, it's not going to be there. And he was like, listen, I can take you out there and I'm going to drop you right where that hook is. And you're going to go down. You'll feel along the bottom a little bit. You'll find a rope. Follow the rope to the end. You'll find my weight. And he did. And he got his weight back from like 10
Because he's probably voted by that same spot
Exactly.
every year, and it always think about there's where I lost
Exactly.
that.
But
So
it's
he knows
just-
exactly where it is.
Yeah, but they have like just all these random stories they tell, and like it's just so interesting. They got a ton of episodes now.
Huh.
He did one where he went to Mars Hill and gave the like speech that Paul gave in the exact same spot. And then like thousands of people showed up and they like tell
Oh,
that
wow.
story. Like recently he did that.
That's cool.
It's just cool. It's very inspiring. So
Do you
that's an
listen to
inspiring.
podcasts? Dan?
Yeah, I do.
Moral Dilemma,
Moral
probably.
Dilemma is the one I listen to the
Oh,
most.
cool.
I listened to The Office Girls for a while.
Oh, I heard that.
Listened to
was pretty
those.
good.
It was pretty
Because
good.
they talk about episodes.
Yeah,
and
they
break it
basically
down.
just go through each episode and talk about what they like.
So did they start with season one?
They
and
start
just
with
all
like the
way?
pilot
Oh,
and
wow.
then season one, and
That's cool.
yeah, so it's pretty good. Sometimes I wish that I.
That was smart of them to do that.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
because there's just a big, huge following. Now,
Oh, yeah.
I'm
new-
still
almost like a
watching it.
new
and I haven't.
following.
I didn't watch most of
Yeah.
it when
Yeah,
I knew about it, but
Yeah.
every once in a while I'll catch it on like Comedy Central.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
TV
There was a
channel.
podcast I used to listen to in college for a little bit. Weirdest. I don't know how I got into it at all, but it was awesome. I didn't finish it though because it was pretty long. But it was it's the weirdest name ever. It's called Dungeons and Daddies.
I remember
But
you talking
It
about
is a
that.
group of dads in like one of their basements, and they play Dungeons and Dragons with each other like they used to when
Yeah.
they were kids.
Yeah.
But their characters are like themselves and their family, and they're like trying to get their family through this like medieval thing. It's
Oh,
so
fun.
entertaining.
Yeah.
And I don't really think it's probably a good thing for families to watch, but
right.
it was fun to listen
So
to for a
the
while.
daddy part is just
It's
that's-
they're
that's
dads.
They're
who they
dads,
are, but
and
it's
their
not-
like powers in the thing are like made up like dad powers. Like I think one's power was to, like summon a minivan out of anywhere to use. if he like rolls a certain number,
That's
he gets
cool.
like a fanny pack or something.
I'll say if we're plugging podcasts, there's one that I listen to. I like. It's called Things You Missed in History,
Uh-huh.
and
Oh,
it's really interesting.
that's really up your alley.
Yeah, it's just like stuff that you've probably heard, maybe never heard about, or maybe, and then they go into detail, and it's all kind of things.
What's it called again?
Things You Missed in History.
Things you missed in here.
That
Yeah,
sounds interesting.
It's pretty
That does sound
pretty
cool.
neat podcast, but they just go over just famous people, famous events, and I just like stuff like that,
Yeah.
like things that are true or whatever. So
So
For
so today we just discovered that we're going to create another podcast and it's
Yeah.
reenacting scenes from movies.
yeah,
Dude, speaking of which,
I would have to
would you guys be opposed to doing that one more time and switching up the roles, just real quick?
or we
for-
could do a different movie. I know we mentioned
Yeah.
several.
Well,
You're
before.
talking about this episode, redo the thing.
Yeah.
Switching up roles,
So I want Dan to be
Jack.
Jack.
Oh man,
I want Corey to be Rose. I'll be the narrator, and I want Eric to do the sound effects.
All right, sounds
I
good.
we
think
do
that's
that?
I think that's a good thing.
All right,
going on.
everyone. Scene 288. And not to be confused, we did not record the first one. That was something we actually found from James Cameron's archives.
Yeah.
So
Hold
let
on,
me
I
know when
gotta-
you're
I
there.
gotta-
hey, I had just like a random trivia. I've been trying to say it forever since you mentioned Doctor Who,
Okay.
but I
I love how that just came back to you.
I just read this thing the other day. It was pretty cool. The actor who plays Dudley Dursley on Harry Potter, his grandfather was the second Doctor Who.
What?
Patrick Thompson.
Yeah.
Patrick Thompson. Am I saying that right? Thompson.
I think it's a
Patrick T. something.
Yeah.
But yeah. So his father was the second Doctor Who.
How did you know that? Did you just know that off
I was reading an article about
the Dursley family?
No, it was an article about it was the Harry Potter characters, like what the actors are doing now.
Huh.
And it was just, which I love stuff like that.
Yeah, oh
and,
yeah, those are-
and it was going through, and it was about him acting and how he hasn't done a lot or whatever, but it listed that his grandfather was. That's pretty cool, right?
is
I
cool.
mean,
All right, you guys ready for this?
Wait, hold on.
288.
So
288. So if you scroll down to the bottom
So-
of this and then scroll up,
Eric's sound effects operator number 2.
yes, I'll be the narrator.
Ryan is narrator number 2.
You're
I'm Jack.
I'm Rose
you're
number
Rose
2.
and you're Jack. But I want to put
Jack's last name.
I want to put a spin on things. I think Jack for this one, Dan. Do you think you could give him an Irish accent or an accent you're good
Boy,
at?
Lassie. Here's my thing. as a kid, I always did voices and stuff, and I
Okay.
thought I was good at it. But all my accents always go back to German.
Okay, well, listen, I
they
wasn't-
all go back to German.
German Jack.
Okay, listen.
Dude, German Jack.
How about this? What if Jack has multiple personality disorder?
I can probably
and
do
every
that.
other line he's
I can-
doing a different
okay,
voice.
I'll try to-
And then
I'll try
Corey,
that.
Rose is Rose. I need you to sound like a female. All right, you got this.
I can do different
Don't
voices
do anything
now.
too controversial because we could get canceled. But you're a woman.
I'm trying to.
You're a confident woman. Was Rose
Here's-
English? Did she have an English accent?
Confident
I can't do
woman.
that.
How can you display that? Like she has.
Here's
like
my
10
thing. I
words
can do
she
different
says.
voices, but they may not be different. It might be like different creature voices.
I just need you to tone your
okay.
Robin Williams.
Okay, so I'll just
Okay.
go with it.
And
here.
then Eric, I kind of want this one to take place in space.
oh,
Think you could do that?
Really?
nobody's gonna hear anything if it's in space.
Okay.
No, he can
You
do
do
like
it
he
in
can
water?
do like
The
Star
Amazon
Wars, like,
rainforest.
noises or space noise.
Unless
Blaster
we're in the
noises?
ship.
I'll wing it.
Okay. Okay.
Amazon
It's
rainforest.
like Star Wars. We would never hear
Okay.
any of those
Yeah.
explosions.
So wait, how
It would
about
just be
this?
ships flying around.
Eric is going to at some point change the sound effects. You guys have to base that off of like where you think you're at. You know what I'm saying?
This is
Whose
going
line is it, man?
full-fledged Whose line? Yeah, that's what I was.
All right, here we go.
full-fledged whose
We're
line
just
is
gonna wing it.
anyway.
We're just gonna wing it. All right. All right. Scene number 288. Cut to the ocean. Jack and Rose drift under the blazing stars. The water is glassy, with only the faintest undulating swell. There's the swell, Eric. Good. Rose can actually see the stars reflecting on the black mirror of the sea. Jack squeezes the water out of her long coat. Can I get a sound effect for the water being squeezed? tucking it in tightly around her legs. He rubs her arms. His face is chalk within the darkness, a low moaning in the darkness around them. Can I get like a whale moan? There it is. All right.
It's getting quiet.
Just a few more minutes. I'll take them a while to get the boats organized.
Rose is unmoving, just staring into space. She knows the truth. There won't be any boats. Behind Jack, she sees that Officer Wilde has stopped moving. He is slumped in his life jacket, looking almost asleep. He has died of exposure already. Can I get some sound effects of him dying?
He died of exposure. He'd just fall asleep. That wasn't it.
It
That's
was-
not Eric's fault. Ryan misled him.
I'm dying of exposure. All right.
I don't know about you, but I intend to write a strongly worded letter to the White Star Line about all this.
She laughs weakly, but it sounds like a gasp of fear. Corey. She laughs weakly, but it sounds like a gasp of fear. Rose finds his eyes in the dim light.
I love you, Jack.
He takes her hand.
Dun, dun.
No, don't say your goodbyes, Rose. Don't you give up. Don't you do it.
I'm so cold.
Oh, you're going to get out of this. You're going to go on. And you're going to make babies. And watch them grow. And you're going to die, you know, lady. Warm in your bed. Not here. Not this night. Do you understand me?
Not really.
Not at all.
Could you repeat that?
Could you say that again, please? All right, Corey.
I can't feel my body.
Rose, listen to me. Listen. Winning that ticket was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Can I get some like fish noises? Jack is having trouble getting the breath to speak.
It brought me to you, and I'm thankful, Rose. I'm thankful.
His voice is trembling with the cold, which is working his way to his heart. Can I get some heartbeats? But his eyes are unwavering.
You must do me this honor. Promise me you'll survive, that you will never get up, no matter what happens, no matter how hopeless. Promise me now, and never let go of that promise.
I promise.
Just never let go.
I promise. I will never let go, Jack. I'll never let go.
She grips his hand, and they lie with their heads together. It is quiet now, except for the lapping of the water. What happened there?
Obviously an explosion.
Beautiful.
She's a liar.
Good work. Adam,
Fire.
Adam, can you play that soundbite from Eric we got last episode? Have you heard this?
No.
Dag nabbit.
Do it again.
Dag nabbit.
Dag
Throw
nabbit.
Eric's laugh in there real quick.
All right.
All right, let's.
Dag nabbit. All right. Thank you guys for humoring me on that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Do you want to?
It was
Yeah, let's do
beautiful.
the moral dilemma part.
Absolutely.
Oh, shoot.
Best part of
Wow.
the app.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about was a lot of times if you think about Jesus' ministry, you think about the fact that he was more concerned about us spiritually than physically, and how there's a lot of times we focus on the physical, you know. And some of the examples of that, one example was when Jesus talked about eating his flesh and drinking his blood. And I'll just read a little bit of it. It's John chapter 6, starting with verse 53, which is a long chapter, by the way. Jesus said to them, "Verily, truly, I tell you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise them up at the last day. For my flesh is real food, and my blood is real drink. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in them. Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so the one who feeds on me will live because of me. This is the bread that comes down from the Father, from heaven. Your ancestors ate of manna and died, but whoever eats this bread, will live forever." And so Jesus is saying that. And so after this, a lot of the people that were following Jesus leave.
Mm-hmm.
And to preface this with the whole idea of how this started is that Jesus fed the 5,000. And so the beginning of the story, Jesus feeds hungry people that were needing food. And so the next day they come back to Jesus, waiting for him to come back to shore for a free lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jesus talks about eating his flesh and drinking his blood because he's wanting them to think spiritually, but yet they're thinking physically. You know, I got a hungry belly. I want you to feed me again. And the challenge for all of us in this life is to not focus so much on our physical things. You know, it's so easy to get distracted on, you know, taking care of our physical body, taking care of our, you know, property, the possessions we have. But God is not concerned about that. You know, Jesus was not concerned about his physical, you know, well-being. Why? Because one thing's for sure, we're all going to die. You know, we have that sentence that's been written that we're going to die. And the challenge I want to encourage each one of us and out there listening to the podcast is keeping in mind the spiritual aspect of your life. That's more important than anything else. And that is oftentimes what gets neglected.
Yeah.
And you think about the reason why they rejected Jesus, because they couldn't wrap their hands around the spiritual things. They wanted an earthly kingdom. They wanted him to be like King David. And are we missing out on God? Are we missing out on what God has for us because we're fixated on the physical things
Mm-hmm.
rather than thinking about spiritual things?
Absolutely. No, I think it is easy to, I know I've been caught up with just in the past and stuff. Like sometimes when I think of like ways that I've been blessed, I immediately default to like physical things that I have, like which obviously are a blessing. Like I'm blessed to have like this new car. I'm so blessed. But I feel like sometimes I get too caught up in that to where I just relate like the blessings God gives me with physical things that I get in the world, which he has a hand in, obviously. But that's not that's not the kind of
That's not the main thing.
it's not the main thing exactly. Like talents, the people I'm around, like experiences that I experience, things like that. Those are more things that I feel like I need to be aware of that are blessings. There's sometimes I just kind of take that for granted, the non-physical things, because it's just hard for us to sometimes realize those non-tangible things are just as just as big a blessing. So I don't know. That's just what I thought of.
No, I agree, and I think here in that story that I just read, and what Jesus is saying is if we take and consume him. So if we would take Jesus and apply him to our life
Mm-hmm.
spiritually, that we would be fed,
Yeah.
that we'd be taken care of, and the think of our life as more than just the physical part of us. Taking care of the physical side is good, but the spiritual side is so much more important, because is what leads to eternal life, not
Yeah.
your physical stuff. Because like your car, you said, or
Mhm.
your possessions that you have, you can't take that with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can take, the relationship you have with God. And
Mm-hmm.
in John chapter 3, Nicodemus is asking Jesus questions. He comes to him at night, and Jesus says the question, you got to be born again. And immediately Nicodemus goes to the physical, right? Well,
Yeah.
how can a man be born again,
Yeah.
go back in his mother's womb?
Mm-hmm.
When Jesus is talking about spiritual things, constantly Jesus was challenging people to think spiritually when they ultimately kept going back to physical. And that's the question for us as Christians. Are we looking to Jesus more spiritually than we do just physical things? Because a
Yeah.
lot of times our prayers are, God, heal me.
Yeah.
God,
Exactly.
help me have this job. God, help me to have this place or this car.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I'm not saying any of that's bad,
No.
but, we miss the mark if we just pray for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much more important things than just the physical stuff.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes when I'm praying, it's just easier sometimes to ask for things like that, because it's things that you physically see an issue with, and that you can physically also see a fix for, like with health and stuff. Like if I'm just constantly praying for my health, obviously God has the power to do that, but it's also just like a personal thing. It's just like, it's almost being selfish.
No, what you're saying is true, and that's what continuing on that John chapter 3, Nicodemus is being taught by Jesus to say spiritual things they're not tangible, right?
Mhm.
And so Jesus gives the example of the wind blowing,
Yeah.
that you can't tell, where the wind blows, but you see the effects. I mean, you can
Yeah.
tell where the wind blows. You can't see it. You see
Mhm.
the effects of the wind.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's when it comes to spiritual things is it's not a tangible thing. So the physical is easier to hold on to. It's
Mhm.
easier to think about because it's there and
Yeah.
it's tangible. You can touch it. Where the spiritual things, you have to stretch yourself to think about the effects of it more
Yeah.
than just seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put yourself up to be open to what God's doing spiritually, and see those effects of what He does. And that takes a little bit more concentration, right?
Oh yeah.
And so, let me ask you guys this question before we close. How do you combat that for yourself? How do you keep your physical side as maybe making that, make sure that's in check, and making sure you're feeding the spirit?
I think something I've been trying to do lately is like what Ryan was talking about earlier. There was a big chunk of my life, like when I prayed, it was just like I was praying for a specific thing each time. But I've been trying to incorporate into my prayer life, especially just like instead of like asking about things that like I want, just being like, okay, God, I want to listen. What do you want me to be doing right now? Like what do I need? Who do I need to be talking to? What do I need to be? Is there something that I'm missing that I should be doing? What is your priority for my life, not mine?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that I've been trying to incorporate a little more frequently, just to try and be at like, ultimately he's in control, but like where do you want me to be right now?
Mhm.
Instead of trying to be like, okay, I want to do this one thing and I want you to make it happen.
Yeah. It's almost like a mindset change,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because you like start praying and you start targeting like super specific things, like I need to find money, I need to find a good job, I need to get something for a car or whatever. But I feel like if you change your mindset and kind of broaden it and just kind of look at your life from like a 3,000 foot view, you can start to see things working, and you can start praying for like Corey said, guide my path here, like guide me to where I can help share the gospel with this person, just more outwards things. And as effect of that, you may see some of those more specific things impacted.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I was thinking about for me that something that, I don't like to, really talk about money a lot, but, one of the things that I feel like God has put on my heart in the last few years is to give not just my tithe, but to give money to the Building for the Future, because it's something I believe in and something that, I really want to see happen. And, there's been times where, with the whole process of buying a house and still having the old one, it's like, man, I don't really feel like I have the money to give that extra amount. But each time when I've still done that, it's not like I give a huge amount, but it's still money I could have used.
Yeah.
God has continued to help me continue to give that money. And I think that about that, like so many times we worry about the physical side of things, like, oh, I can't do that right now, or I can't do this. And yet God meets you every time, not to blindly go in it, but, don't let the physical become an excuse not to do the spiritual act.
Yeah.
And make sure you're doing the spiritual act of things. And because God is able to do the impossible, right? And God is, we need to trust him with our futures and really the things that we think that we need. I'm a big boy. I have lots of toys, more than probably I need. So why do I spend so much time focused on what I don't have?
Yeah.
And not be thankful for what I'm blessed with physically? Because I could go without a few lunches. I could go, not that I have, but God always meets my needs. Yeah. And yet we get so fixated on the spiritual aspect. Did you have something you wanted to share?
Well, I just think you have to be purposeful, and I think that comes with your Christian walk. You have to keep taking strides to move, like the Bible talks about. You're on the milk, but eventually, he's like, I can't give you meat because you're not ready for it. And I think you just have to be purposeful in your walk and just understand that, life, it's slow changes and slow movements in life. You normally, God doesn't make a change and one day it's this way and one day it's completely, because that's not how change comes to us. Change has to be gradual. And because for you to understand or to grow through anything, it has to be a process, plain and simple. Because we just don't learn. We don't appreciate things, If a kid that gets his first car, his parents give it to him, he's not going to appreciate the same as a kid who has to mow grass all summer and save and buy it for himself.
For sure.
And that's just the way that we're wired. But I think, too, just in our prayer life, I know that I feel like the older I get, the more specific I am in my prayers. Not just, God, help me, help my health. Like, I want to specifically help this area, help, my back's hurting, target that area. And I think we have to be specific in our prayer. God has a plan and has a will for our life, and he wants to reveal that to us. And I think we got to pray that is like, God, show me what you want me to be doing. Like, I want to walk where you want me to walk. I want to walk this path you have for me, and help me to stay here, but reveal to me what that is, what I need to be doing so that I can keep moving forward.
For sure.
Because a lot of times, the devil, the enemy, it comes at us with everything. With disappointment through other people, with like you guys were talking about, not getting what you think you need. I think God's up there saying, no, you have everything you need. I'm equipping you here. Not to be nerdy, but it always takes me back. I always think, I guess, inspirational. I always think the line from Tolkien, from Aragorn, and he's so confused about what he wants to do moving forward and being the king. And he tells Eowyn, he tells her, I feel like my path is hidden from me. And she says, your path is laid out in front of you, and which basically she's saying your path to being a king is there. You just have to go forward and do it. And so I think that's with our Christian walk, God has a path for us. We just have to get strong, get mature, and keep walking on it. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. Making Eric choke up.
Oh, sorry, man.
Talk about Lord of the Rings.
I know. I had to do my Lord of the Rings plug at least once today.
Every episode.
Well, it's been a good episode. It's
Yeah.
been different.
Yeah.
I love that.
We didn't have a plan, so
Yeah, we didn't have a plan. I'm going to try to find us another script for next episode. I love that.
We mentioned a couple. I mean,
Yeah.
we mentioned
No,
some
I'm going to try to
Star
find them and
Wars.
print it off and highlight lines.
we
can
talked
figure it
about
out.
Shrek.
Yeah.
Shrek.
The
I can
Vader
go in.
scene, I think, from Star
I also
Wars.
kind of
Luke
want to
and
bring
Vader.
one in. I want to find one, bring one in, but not have the name of the movie.
Oh,
and
I gotcha.
Make everyone
Let's do a
act out.
dialogue for like The Last of Us.
Oh, yeah. Like a video game?
Yeah.
It's going to be the zombie munching on someone.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching that chaotic episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know if there's any movie scripts you want us to read in the future, because that might be a new little segment. So,
See ya.
deuces.
Peace out.